And welcome to our LinkedIn Live. We're talking about employee engagement, 10 ways to build trust on your team. So, welcome. Leave a comment in the chat and tell us where you're joining us from. I really want you to leave a comment in particular because I have a download for you. It's a recap of the 10 ideas that I'm going to talk about today for building trust and engagement on your team. And I want to get that link to you. So, leave a comment and I'll see it and I'll respond with the link to the download. So the topic is how to build employee engagement. We're going to talk about what engagement is, and equally importantly, what it isn't. There are some nuances that I really want you to understand about employee engagement, and we're going to talk about specific ways to build engagement and build trust on your team and improve your culture in your organization. So critical. It's always been critical, and it's especially critical now. If you're new to our LinkedIn live stream, I'm Liz Ryan, CEO and founder of Human Workplace, which is a training and consulting firm whose mission is to reinvent work for people. My background is startup and corporate HR, leading HR for 100,000 years. And what I'm going to share with you today is how we built trust and community at work and how you can do the same thing in your organization. So welcome from Glasgow, from North Carolina, New Jersey, Ireland. Fabulous. So good to see you from Delaware and Nigeria, South Africa. Wonderful. So glad you're here. So let's talk for starters today about what engagement is, and then we'll talk about what it isn't. What is employee engagement? What does that mean? That term has been around for maybe 20, 25 years. Before that, we used to talk about morale. I'm old enough as an HR person to remember when it was morale. How's the morale of the troops, right? Engagement is morale, but it has this idea in it of getting past the transaction, getting past, I have a job, they pay me to perform services, I take the money and I spend it on my rent and food and whatever. That's how I think about my job. This is fine. It's valid. It's a perfectly fine way to think about your work, right? And people do a wonderful job in their professions every day who really have the job because of the paycheck. It's fine and it's valid. And this is one thing we really need to keep in mind when we talk about employee engagement. We pay people to perform their services capably and responsibly. And if they do that, that's good. It is not appropriate for us as leaders to say, well, you have to be really into the company and you have to, to show your loyalty and your dedication. That's not only unrealistic, but it's not appropriate. It's actually insulting and in some cases abusive. A great way to get this picture in your mind is to go look at the movie, the old movie Office Space. Jennifer Aniston's character works at a restaurant, bar and grill, and they want her to wear little pins all over her apron. You've been to these restaurants. They say flair. They call the pins flair. Where's your flair? We want you to have 8 pieces of flair on your apron, but it's supposed to be real. You're supposed to love it, and you're supposed to joke and banter with the customers because you love it. But if you don't love it, you're a bad employee. And what the filmmaker is trying to do throughout that movie is showcase how, if you want the employees to put out this happy face and smile and joke and banter with the customers, you have to treat them really well. Then they will do that because they want to, not because they're forced to. And this gets to the heart of this idea of employee engagement. Employee engagement is creating an environment at work, and I'm going to explain today how to do that. It means creating an environment where people forget about the underlying transaction because it's not important. They get a paycheck that is fair. They feel respected and supported at work. It's a safe environment. It's clean. It's well lit. They understand the role. They understand what they're there to do, and they're able to do it. They're able to get it done without impediments. Most of what we need to do when we talk about increasing engagement at work is take away impediments that are there, that grow in organizations even when we're not aware of them, like a dam, like a beaver dam that blocks the flow of the river. Our job as leaders is to take away these blockages and obstacles that keep people from being able to just race down the track and do their jobs. This is a major complaint of employees in all industries and at all levels. I wish they would just let me do my job. So, what are some of these blockages? Well, role confusion. People are not sure what they're supposed to do versus the person at the next desk or the next workstation, and maybe there's conflict about it and it hasn't been cleared up by management. That's a big energy blocker, right? Unclear directions. What are we supposed to be doing? The strategy has changed 3 times. That's an energy blocker. Not respecting people's time outside of work, major energy blocker, or just not respecting people when they're there. People get busy, managers get busy, and they bark out orders and they're short with people. Forget about engagement. Engagement means that the environment creates, enables people to get into their work. And here's the thing about human beings, they naturally do that anyway. Think about when you were 4 or 5 years old. You remember being a little kid, kindergarten or before kindergarten, and you would sit and play with mud in the backyard and you were into it. How does this work? Let me pour this in here and mix some water in. It's cool. I remember making mud pies. You remember making mud pies? It was fun. And we're practicing doing things and seeing our effect on the world, right? They say that a child, by the time they reach school age, has already conducted 60,000 physics experiments, 12,000 a year, 1,000 a month, 250 physics experiments a week. It makes sense, right? Turn on the tap, the cold water's cold, the hot water's hot. You mix them together, it's room temperature. It's all very fascinating. For a little kid, it's science. We like to work. And if we as employers make the work the slightest bit interesting and fun, people will like the work too. But unfortunately, we have a tendency to put up these obstacles that keep people from being able to engage with their work. So, this is what I'm going to be talking about today, how to take away those obstacles and allow people the freedom to engage with their work the way human beings naturally will under the right conditions. Let me stop and say hi to folks, everybody that is here. I'm so glad you are from Ghana, from Sudan, from Dubai, Central Illinois, brilliant, South Carolina, Brazil, bonjour. Wow, really wonderful to see everybody joining us from every continent except Antarctica. We're waiting for Antarctica, but that might take a minute. Okay, so engagement is allowing people the freedom or the room to engage with their work and actually sort of get lost in it. We call that the zone. I'm in the zone. I'm hard at work. I'm in the zone. I'm trying to do this stuff, not because someone is cracking a whip over me because I have to. It's because it's my job and I like it and I'm into it and I'm good at it. And this has to do with creating an environment where engagement can flourish versus an environment where people feel pressed and stressed and they can't do anything other than the bare minimum of what the job requires. Because what do we always want? We always want the energy at work to be positive. We want it to be reinforcing of people and their brilliance and their talent and their teamwork. We don't want to be, you've got to get this stuff done or else. There are 2 ways to manage. One is through fear, threats, and intimidation, and the other is through trust. And guess which one is more productive and more fun and more healthy and more profitable? It's trust, of course. I'm lucky that I became an HR person when, I was at a point in my career where, I was able to work in companies that were growing and they were all about make it fun. make it awesome. We want to hire a lot of people and we want them to really enjoy it here and we want them to bring their friends and that's what I did. And my teammates did the same. And all the managers in the company kind of showed up with the same vision. Some of them had worked in fear-based management environments before and it took a little getting used to, but they said this is by obviously the way to go. Hire people we respect, set them free to do what they need to do, and just continually reinforce the trust level and reduce the fear level, right? That is our goal as managers. That is our goal as HR people or communicators or change managers, anybody involved with culture, with leadership, with the environment inside an organization. Our goal is to reduce the level of fear and increase the level of trust. Now, since we've been, that's good, Michael. LA is cold right now, and it feels like Antarctica. Okay, we give you extra points for that, Michael. Here's the thing: we started talking about engagement maybe 25 years ago, and like so many other good ideas, this one, employee engagement, got weaponized. And it's weaponized still. I see things out in the press. I see things on LinkedIn and elsewhere that I just have to shake my head. If an employee is not engaged, here are 5 ways to deal with it. You do not want to be evaluating employees' engagement level. That is gross. That is insulting and demeaning. People are people. We go up and down in waves, right? Do you wake up feeling amazing every single day? Life circumstances affect you, your moods affect you, your health affects you, things happening in the world affect you, right? We are not going to evaluate employees' engagement level. That is just this again, fear-based management, right? That is not what we want to do. A lot of stuff is out there in the world right now about how to measure engagement. Don't even try. That's like measuring happiness. Is it a happy birthday party or could it be happier? It's ridiculous. These are waves of human emotion, and we're not going to measure them like particles. Even when we're talking about science and particles and the science of measurement, that when you measure things down to the microscopic level, we change them. In other words, you can't measure, for example, with an electron. You can measure the location, but at the cost that you then no longer know the velocity. So there are things that are unmeasurable, and that's the way it should be. If you cannot tell if the organization is healthy, then we should do another LinkedIn Live about that, because your employees definitely know. The last thing we want to do is do some kind of point factor individual measurement of engagement. That is the opposite of what engagement is. You will never get a good result. You will only increase the level of fear by looking at your employees and saying who's engaged and who's not. That's Jennifer Aniston again in the movie Office Space. Hey, Jennifer, whatever the character's name is, you need some more flair on your apron. Does that mean she's into her job when she puts those extra buttons on her apron straps? No. It means she's doing what her manager is forcing her to do. And I believe in the movie she quits the job. Thank God, right? We are trying to create an environment where people are allowed to bring themselves to work. We're not trying to force them to be engaged. There's an old saying from even before I started working, from out of the 70s or maybe the 60s, that says, the beatings will continue until morale improves. That's the most extreme way to articulate this idea that you cannot force engagement, you cannot legislate it, you cannot compel people to be engaged. Come on, they're human beings and we know how human beings work. You can allow them to connect with their power source at work. For some people, the power source is the creative aspect of the job. For some people, the power source is the social aspect of the job. For some people, the power source is just, I like to just be in my work, clickety clack. It's satisfying. We've all had that experience, right? I remember being a young working person and just spending hours doing stuff back when it was Staples and pulling carbonless forms out and sticking them in files. It wasn't bad. It satisfied some sort of a need for order and completion and a feeling of satisfaction, it was completely fine. Even standing by the copier at a certain age, like, well, let me get these copies done, moving towards something. If the environment supports people feeling good and healthy and supported and reinforced, then you're doing great. But if the environment is that people are always being measured and always being evaluated and always being inspected and judged at every moment of the day, obviously you're not going to get the results that you want. So we're going to avoid the measurement side of engagement, especially at the individual employee level, and we're going to focus on the environment that we create at work. So I'm going to give you today 10 simple ways to grow engagement in your workplace by improving the trust level in the environment, creating more of a human feeling and less of a mechanical feeling where people are mainly motivated by their desire to stay out of trouble. That's obviously not what we want. We want them to completely forget the fact that it's even possible to get in trouble at work because they're just so involved and focused on what they're doing and their team and the good energy around them. Make sense? I'm going to answer any questions that might be in the chat right now, and then I'll get into the specifics. Hello from Atlanta and Charleston and Fort Lauderdale and Calgary Flames. I know that much. Not super sporty. Ireland, yeah, where my forebears came from. And bienvenue, Geraldine, of France, Dubai, East Africa, Ethiopia. Wow. I should know how to say hello. And I'm Hart, but I've forgotten Opsy. And welcome from Irvine, Chicago Public Schools. Love it. Egypt. Okay. No questions that I can see. Okay, beautiful. So the idea is that we're going to look at the opportunities to increase the trust level and reduce the fear level. And we're going to do that in our language, in the tone that we use, and in the junctures or the spots where we choose to communicate with employees. And then obviously what we say to them from a leadership perspective. If you think about it, our opportunity to increase the trust level and improve the culture doesn't start the day that a new employee joins your organization. It starts earlier when they first encounter you. Where do most people who do not yet work for you, where do they first encounter your organization? Normally it's in the job ad. They read a job ad. Maybe they've never heard of your company before. Maybe they've heard of you, but they don't know anything about you. You're going to communicate right in the job ad itself what kind of place you are, what it's like to work there. You're not going to say, we have an immediate need for a software developer with 6 years of blah, blah, blah. The selected candidate will possess. What's wrong with that job ad? It's horrifying. We have an immediate need. That's great. As my husband says, people in hell need ice water. Who cares if you have a need? That's like saying, jump on this. We have an immediate need. Now, Angel, my darling, we all know if someone applies for that job, you may consider it an immediate need, but it's still going to be 6 weeks for them to get that job, right? In the industrialized world, it takes time. There's interviews, there's background checks, there's whatever. We can't get everybody together for the second interview. Someone's out of town. Don't start a job ad. We have an immediate need. It's not about you. It's say, hey, are you somebody who's interested in this, this, and this? We are hiring a senior software engineer whose challenge will be to do this. Give them a meaty project that they're going to work on. These are smart people. They want to know what the work is. What will I be responsible for? You'll be instrumental in launching our new Bing at a Bing product, following up on the success of the product we launched last year that won a Best New Product Award, right? Give them the reason why. We don't want to write a job ad that is just what you, the candidate, have to possess. That's not marketing. This is an advertisement. It's got to advertise your company in a way that makes it appealing. And we too often forget to do that. So we don't have a human voice in the job ads. We're not selling at all. People feel like, well, why should I work for you? I could work for anybody. Everyone's looking for software engineers, and everyone's looking for most professions now. There's a terrible shortage of talent just about everywhere. So we're going to respond to that by saying, take a look at us. We know you have choices. Humility. Humility is part of trust, isn't it? We know you have choices, but maybe take a look at us. Here's what we're doing. We're excited about it. We'd love to have you consider being on our team. We have a mindset in recruiting often like, oh no, the whole world wants to work here. We have to keep them out, the hordes of Mongol hordes. What? No, most people don't want to work for you. You have to entice them in. And you're going to do that in your job ad. If you have a recruiting website, you're going to use human language, conversational speech, like I'm talking to you right now. Victor, hi Liz, should you be worried accepting a job with the description working under a fast-paced environment and often under stressful situations? You got to appreciate the honesty, but that's not good. Why is it so stressful? Fix that problem and then come talk to me about a job, right? If you have other opportunities where they don't talk about the stress level right in the job ad, then pursue those opportunities first. I mean, it's very strange that there would be a job ad that said, well, there's a lot of problems in the company. Well, then fix the problems, Angel. Fix the problems, and then we'll talk about me coming to work for you. Isn't that beyond obvious? But we have an old mentality that people are just always trying to work here. So we get to evaluate you based on your ability to handle stress. No, I already evaluated you, employer, based on your ability to manage the stress out of your organization. And I found you lacking. And that's why I'm not going to apply. Reality. We got to deal with reality. Making that kind of change to conversational language is difficult at first, but it really makes a huge difference. Thanks. Is it difficult? Snap of the finger, right? Just rewrite. Changing mindset is indeed, you're right. It's a process because people grew up in this old school. We're the company, we're going to use formal language. Why? Well, that's the way we were taught. Yeah, right. I was taught to pick up the phone and dial 411 and ask for a phone number, but we haven't done that in 40 years. So let's move on. It's weird because every business process has been re-engineered except HR and recruiting. Isn't that interesting? How come we haven't re-engineered recruiting ever? We still use basically the same process we used in the 30s and 40s, but now it's online and not improved. All right. Are you displaying anything? No, just my face. You should be able to see my face. Got a blue top on. What's your take on the statement, your direct manager is the biggest influence on your engagement and success in a job? For sure. For sure. Your direct manager is incredibly important. And there should be a lot more conversation, in my view, between managers and employees, and then between managers as a group and among managers as a group about how to do these things and how to create this environment where engagement can thrive and everything that we want at work can grow and thrive. So we're still in the recruiting process. We talked about putting a human voice in your job ads, and that is step one. In the 10 steps that I mentioned, I would share with you about how to increase engagement on your team. These are prospective team members, but they're still in the community. You wouldn't want to be terse and harsh with people until they're hired and then say, now here's the real us. Let the real us come out. It's a huge recruiting advantage, by the way. Huge recruiting advantage to humanize your recruiting process. So that's number one. Number two is still in the recruiting process. This employee hasn't even joined you yet. Here's what it is. This is my second tip for you. You look at resumes coming in response to your job ad or coming from recruiters or wherever they're coming from, and you select some people for an interview. So you say, well, we're going to interview Joaquin and Sally and 3 other people next week. Okay, that sounds great. We'll set up the interview. And what happens? Normally, the candidate is told, please look for a Zoom link for this interview at 4:00 next Tuesday at XYZ Plastics. Or please travel down to the XYZ Plastics facility and you're going to have an interview there at 4:00 next Tuesday. And that's what we tell them. Bing, bing, our task is done. The candidate will show up on Tuesday, presumably at 4 o'clock, and we'll have an interview. This is a process from the 1920s. Today we have communication, we have email, we have text, we have all these things, we have video. Why would we miss the opportunity to say to the candidate, we would love to meet you. And if 4 o'clock next Tuesday works for you, we would love to meet you then. And we don't want to waste your time. We are sure you must have questions for us. Some of the questions or our answers to the questions could determine whether you even want the job. So we don't want to waste your time coming to an interview if this is not a good fit. Or if you are up for the interview, but you have questions you would like to have answered in advance, by all means, ask those questions. This is a very easy, free, no cost, takes 2 minutes. You say to the candidate, so we're excited to see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. What questions do you have for us in advance? Right? Just a human communication like you would expect. Let's say you were going to, I don't know, talk to somebody who is going to work on your house, a contractor. And they said, I just have a few questions. I don't want to waste your time coming out there and looking at your place. I need to know what kind of roof you have and this and that. You'd say, oh, of course. You wouldn't say, no, how dare you? Come out here, get in your car, contractor person, and come out here and look. That's insane. This is what we have in recruiting too often. Employer up with all the power, candidate down. Please, sire, please consider me. No, those days are over. They've actually been over for 20 years. But companies are just now starting to wake up, and not all of them. I wish they all would. My background in recruiting, my team and I hired 10,000 people without an ATS. That's an applicant tracking system. We hired 10,000 people with no ATS because we didn't need it. What's the benefit? Really, it's a good thing, an applicant tracking system for tracking applicants in your system, but it's a terrible way to interact with people. And I would never be in charge of recruiting in an environment where we say the first thing you need to do now that you're interested in our company is fill out a bunch of forms. What? We don't make our customers, prospective customers, fill out forms. We say, hey, how can we help you? And recruiting is as important as sales. It's vitally important for any organization, but it's hard to let go of this mentality. We're up. And they should be happy to work here. But why? Why? What's so great about your company? Why? Can you articulate what's so great? You can't? Yeah. So why should anybody? And then we say, well, it's a good job. Is it a good job? You couldn't articulate one reason why someone should come and work here, apart from the salary. Engagement means getting above and beyond the transaction. If someone is worth $80,000 US per year, anybody would pay them that. So they don't have to take the job based on the 80,000. They can choose to work for a company that treats them like a valued professional. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to look for opportunities to remind people that the transaction is secondary, not important. What's important is them connecting to their power source and being able to do their best work, which benefits them and us and our customers and our shareholders, and by extension, the whole world. That's why I take culture building and building engagement as a very personal and really almost sacred thing. It's certainly our job as HR people and leaders, but in a larger sense, it's everybody's job to make workplaces healthy and to talk about the blockages rather than ignoring them and saying, well, I don't want to be the one to bring it up. I know there's a problem, but if I say something, I could get in trouble. That's just fear. That's just toxicity. It's like walking into a house that looks great, and then you realize there's termites in the walls and the place is about to fall down. So the second opportunity to build engagement still in the recruiting process is to write to a candidate and say, hey, would you like to come and interview? What time is good for you? Okay, Thursday at 4 p.m. That's brilliant. Here's our address. And by the way, what questions do you have for us right now? And to monitor that email box, of course, that inbox, and answer the questions. Well, what are the working hours? Oh, the working hours are this. How much travel is in the job? Oh, this much. And after you answer a bunch of those questions, you will realize you can put some of these answers right in the job ad. That's where they belong. Salary information always, 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 always goes in the job ad, because if you don't include the salary information in the job ad, two bad things happen. A lot of people won't take the time to apply because they think it's not worth my time. If this company will not be transparent enough to tell me what they're planning to pay, why should I bother with them? And the other reason is that when you don't include the salary range in the job ad, you send a really loud signal that your company is based on fear rather than trust, right? Because if you valued the candidates, you would value their time. You would not want them to waste their time applying for jobs that might not pay enough, and you would tell them what you're planning to pay. You know, so when you don't do that, it's just a huge red flag for candidates. And candidates have choices today. That's right. Would you make a customer jump through all these hoops? Of course not. The people inside the company are what power your ability to serve customers. Literally, if the people in your company didn't care or just left, you would not be able to serve customers. So, in that sense, your employees are more important than your customers. But it's hard. It's hard for employers a lot of times to get clear about that, although it's obvious on its face. So yeah, so you have two opportunities, many more, but today in this conversation, I mentioned two opportunities in the recruiting process to build trust and also to change the energy between you and the candidates, to really have them know, well, these are people are different. This is not the terse, formal, robotic hiring process. These people are real with me, and I love that. And then, of course, by extension, you can make the interviews very conversational and very organic, just like a conversation at a coffee shop. That's really what a job interview should be like. Is a conversation at a coffee shop. You're meeting someone for the first time, very friendly, give and take, not like a list of scripted questions. That's literally from the teens. I collect, like the nerd that I am, old management handbooks, and they're cosmic. They're wild, and they tell you, you're going to ask these questions. Yeah, this is an old, old, old mindset. You're going to ask questions. It's a terrible way to really get to know someone, is asking them questions from a script, obviously, right? I teach a different way to interview candidates, more of a conversational style, but this is another opportunity, the interview itself. But it's not on my list. So I'm going to give you 8 more ways to build engagement on your team. So you have a new employee; they've been hired. You made an offer, and they accepted the offer. And it's very cool, and they're going to start work on the 16th of August or whatever date, September 1st. So this person is coming. So now there's a gap in time. They've accepted a job, and they basically don't hear from you, and they assume everything is cool, and they're going to show up on September 1st, and you're going to have them fill out some things for payroll and insurance or whatever, and you're going to give them an ID, you're going to give them some logins. But that's a gap where most organizations do not talk to newly hired candidates. They need to. This is exactly the time where other employers will swoop in and say, well, what's your offer from XYZ Plastics? I'll pay you $5,000 more. That's a time of great vulnerability. And it's normal for human beings, when we make big life decisions like accepting a job offer, to have doubts. And we call it cognitive dissonance. What if it's not the right place? I don't know. Should I have taken this job? And very often, folks, there is no communication from the employer at all between the acceptance of the offer letter and the person's arrival on their first day, virtually or physically. It's kind of like, okay, our clerical job is done. We'll go on to the next thing. No, we want to stay in close communication. My personal approach to this is that I would drop a note to a candidate and say, how's everything? Did you give notice at your job? How are you feeling? What questions do you have for me? You've got to do that. Even if it's only a week between the offer acceptance and the start date, you've got to check in with them. They are like a customer who's close to doing a deal. Signing the offer letter is not doing a deal. They signed an offer letter. They could still be interviewing all over town, right? So you're going to make them feel good about working with you even before they start. I was lucky because when I was a customer service manager, and my VP of operations said, I want you to run HR for our small company at the time. It got large, but it was at that time maybe 400 or 500 employees. And I said, I don't want to do it. That doesn't sound like fun. He said, it's going to be fun. Your job, Liz, is to make this a fantastic place to work and hire tons of people and have them really be happy about working here. And I said, oh, well, then, okay, then I could do it. And I did. And so looking at these junctures or these opportunities to connect with people and say, we're so glad you're coming. What are you thinking about? Do you have any questions? Well, yeah, I'm just thinking about I have to go to school immediately after I leave work. Is there a locker or place to leave my backpack? Great question. We'll figure that out, right? We will figure that out. We'll give you a desk with a big drawer, locking drawer. Here's the dimensions. Like, it's easy to do this stuff, right? I use a walker sometimes. Is there an elevator? Absolutely. Here's this, here's that. Service, listening, responding. That's what builds trust. And trust is the goal. Trust is the goal. The good benefits, the productivity and profitability and all that will flow absolutely and automatically from the trust. Just a couple numbers. I mentioned that I worked for a small company that got big. I don't remember how many people worked there when I started, but not very many, not more than 25. And when I left, it was thousands. And sales wise, the first year that I worked for the company, they broke $1 million in sales. This is a minute ago. And then when I left, they were doing like 400 million in sales. And this is only over 9 years. And that was the growth. And then I went to a technology company to run HR for them. And their sales were 15 million and they had 100 people. And we grew the company to 10,000 people and 2.5 billion in sales. How do you do that? Trust, trust, trust. Hire smart people and give them a lot of latitude and remind them they are valued and we're really glad they're there. We want to give them the tools, give them the resources, the guidance, the clarity, everything they need to do their work with no impediments. And my boss used to say all the time, tell me where the roadblocks are so we can get rid of them. Tell me what's keeping people from engaging with their work, and we will get rid of those roadblocks. That's the goal, right? We're never going to legislate engagement. We're never going to force people to care. You cannot force people to care. And it's creepy that we say, well, we'll have more incentives. That's you pay people fairly. That goes without saying. But after that, it's not about money. And one of the reasons we usually use money as an incentive is this. The person who pays, I'm going to pay you. You better do this stuff. They stay in control psychologically. You can't be in control and get engagement. That's the truth. You have to give up some of the control. Of course, we're going to still do safety controls. We're going to do financial controls, right? But minute to minute, day to day, I value your opinion. I hired you because you're so smart. You know how to do this stuff. What do you think we should do? You're going to take the time to involve people in decision making. But let me get back to my list. So you've got a person who has accepted a job they haven't started yet. Communicate with them then. And once again, you're going to ask them, what can I do for you? What can I do? What do you need from us at this point? How's everything going? People will bring up issues. They'll email back and say, I'm having a little problem. I'm trying to give notice to my boss, but there's a formal procedure here because I'm on a contract. I have to do this or that. And the person is on vacation. You say, oh my gosh, let's get on the phone and let's figure it out. Let's brainstorm. I used to talk to candidates all the time. We had made an offer and someone had accepted it. And they said, Liz, you have to help me. Sure. What do you need? You have to practice with me giving notice. I'm scared to give notice. It's normal. It's 100% normal. Let's walk through it. I'll be the boss. And we would do it on the phone. I'll sit with somebody at Denny's and help them give notice because this is a hard thing, especially for a young person. And you have to talk to them about counteroffers. What if their company makes them a counteroffer? You got to be ready for that. You have to say, look, you're probably going to get a counteroffer because you're amazing. And so what are you going to say? Well, it would be good to have more money, but they've treated me terribly the whole time I've been here. I know. That's why we met the first place, right? Because you were having problems. Yeah. So I'm going to tell them, thank you so much, but no. And I would say, if you want to soften that no, because no is a harsh word, and you've been working with these people and you're physically in a room with them, and it can be feel very intimidating and hard. If you want to soften that no, when you refuse the counteroffer, you can say, life is long. Who knows when our paths will cross again? And of course, I wish you all and the whole team all the best. La 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 la. And off they go to their next adventure. But helping employees, helping candidates, helping new hires at every step of the way, that's how you build trust. You say, what do you need? There are no dumb questions, right? There are no dumb questions. Ask me anything. I'm not sure of the dress code. No problem. Let's talk about it. Here's what we wear. There's a lot of latitude, but here's the typical thing, right? Be open, be ready. Say, you can't make a mistake. Just tell me what's on your mind. Because if you don't open up that space, no one's going to say anything, right? If I walked in to orientation, onboarding meeting, day one, very stiff and formal, and said, oh, well, class, here you are. Pick up your pencils. Here we are. It would kill everything we're trying to do, right? It would be like, okay, well, this is just another job where I have to be undercover. I have to be in disguise. I can't bring my real self to work at all. These people will never know me because they're very formal and they're very harsh. And I'll just take the paycheck. That's not what we want. We're trying to build community and trust. We're trying to say, what are we doing wrong? What do we need to change? So you're going to be in contact with them before they start. And then the fourth place to build trust and community at work, of course, is when they start. And it makes me very sad when I hear from people who say, I started a job. I've been here for 4 weeks. I still don't have a login to their systems. I still don't have the laptop they promised me. I'm using my own laptop. I don't have an office or a workstation. They're bouncing me around conference room to conference room. I tear my hair out. How can you do that? You're creating a theatrical experience like launching a Broadway show. And every detail has to be perfect. When that person walks in, it's an audience of one. Well, if you have an orientation class of 30 people, it's an audience of 30. You want it to be joyful. You want it to be fizzy. You want them to be excited. There's coffee, there's decaf coffee, there's tea, there's orange juice, whatever. It's not lavish. There's bagels, there's fruit. And you say, so here we are. We're going to just take a couple of minutes to just get coffee and get comfortable. And if you guys want to chat together, it's absolutely wonderful. Chat with me. And then we'll sit down and we'll start the meeting. And the goal of the meeting is for you to feel like all your questions got answered. I'm not here to push information in your brain. I don't teach HR folks and training folks and other leaders to do the whole history of the organization and everything about the industry. When people show up on their first day, their brains are full and they're mostly full of questions. Get the questions out. That's what you want to do, to create space in their brain and lower their stress level so they feel supported. The first thing in every orientation and also every interview is what? The very first thing to tell someone when they walk into your building and they know they're going to be there for an hour or more, what's the first topic to cover? Very first topic to cover. Anybody? Where are the bathrooms? Restrooms are right here. There's the door. You see the door. There it is. That's it. Then they don't worry. And here's the exit. We are human beings. We're animals, right? We're a species of animals, just like any other species. And we need to know, am I safe? Where am I? There's the exit. Here's the bathroom. Here's a place where I can get coffee and water. I'm good. I'm good. I can be here for an hour and I feel okay, right? We have to deal on that level. Helping people feel better. That is always better for our organization. It's always better for our customers and our shareholders. Talking down to people and saying, here's what you must do. Yeah, the best you can get from that is grudging compliance. Okay, I'll do it. Not happy about it. Where is that person's mind? Where's their heart? It's not with you. So we want to get rid of all that intense, scary, It will no longer be permitted. Why would you start an email that way? A group email. It will no longer be permissible to come in through the back entrance. So you're going to make it a disciplinary thing? It's a freaking door. You say, we found that it was unsafe for our employees at the rear of the building to sit near an open door, and that is not acceptable. So that door now is operated by your employee ID. Sorry for the inconvenience. Right? It's a good thing. It's a helping thing. Not if you will no longer, I never want to see an email that says you will not be paid for time off if you're sick after a holiday. Really? That's weird because people get sick after holidays because they're with their relatives and their friends who often have germs. You're going to punish someone? If you punish employees for being sick the day after a holiday, what you're saying is, we don't believe our place that we've created is a place anyone would want to come to. So we got to force you. It's not leadership. Okay, moving on. So the entry, the way people join your company is a huge opportunity to build engagement. Do you have any questions? What can I do for you? What can I answer for you right now on orientation day? And you would get into it. What do you want to know? Tuition reimbursement? Yeah, that starts after 6 months, and here's how it works. And then after a year, this works. I want everybody to hear this. They might not be thinking about going back to school, but so what? I want them to know that the company has thought this stuff through, and we're always ready to talk about it. Let me stop and see questions here. That's right. Alexandra, cover basic human needs first. The physical stuff. What's safe? I'm agreeing with you. Line managers, let's listen to juniors. Engagement's about good communication. They could be our company ambassadors. That's the truth, right? Ambassadors for the company, bringing out the message of what this company is doing and what it's like to work there. Control still a major issue in older companies and newer companies too. Sad to say. Let's see, having diverse candidates in recruiting stage. Yep. Absolutely critical, right? Diversity and having people see all cultures and age groups and abilities, physical abilities, and all of that represented in your workplace is just such a recruiting advantage. It's so great for your organization in every way. Every study has said that diverse organizations, diverse leadership teams perform better by every single metric. They perform better. So we got 4 ways so far to increase engagement in your company. And you're going to get this in a download from me. So be sure to leave a comment in the chat. The first way is in the job ad. The second way is in your communication with candidates who have been invited to an interview to make sure they have an opportunity to ask questions. And if there are things you need to tell them about the interview, by all means, do it. You're going to be meeting Sally Smith. She's the manager of customer education. And, here's her LinkedIn profile if you want to look at it, and so on. You're just trying to put out a welcome mat, a red carpet for every single candidate, right? Because you're selling every single candidate until you decide definitively, we're not going to hire this person for this opportunity, at least not at this time. And then you're going to send a very polite note, or if they prefer, text them or call them. As long as we have the technology, ATS, applicant tracking system technology, we should ask candidates, how do you like to be contacted, right? So if they don't get the job at this time, we can tell them in their preferred way, and politely and respectfully. I did a survey on LinkedIn, and 25% of respondents said they, as HR people or recruiters, don't even notify candidates at all when they're not hired. It was a sad day for me, because my HR background is we always tell candidates, even if they just send a resume, much less if they take the time to interview. That's common courtesy. So the first way we engage is in the job ad. The second way is in our communication before the interview. Our third way to build engagement is in our communication after the offer is accepted. And the fourth way is when they join the organization, of course. I worked for a tech company I mentioned. Company was called US Robotics, and it was in Chicago. And we had volunteers, started about 20 and grew to, I think, about 100 people, called Robo Buddies. robo buddies who volunteered to team up with new employees when they started their job. So what happened was these robo buddies were trained in about 50 or 60 questions that new employees would commonly have. And then on top of that training, they had their own wonderful judgment. And they got t-shirt, they got polo shirts and they got a few little perks. And we went to, a Cub game. This is Chicago. It got a skybox once a year just to celebrate the Robo Buddies. And occasionally we had meetings, but their task was to come on Mondays at noon when the morning orientation, sort of check in for new employees was finished and pick up their person. And it reminded me of when my children started high school and there would be a senior there to say, "Oh, hello," to the child. "Let me show you around and help you see where your classes are going to be." So reassuring and so soft and supportive and wonderful. And that's what the Robo Buddies did. They said, "I'm going to walk you to your department, introduce you around, and then I'm going to check in with you every day for the next 2 weeks. Somehow, by text, by walking over here, and anything you need to know, anything you're not comfortable asking, ask me. I've heard every question. It's completely fine. You're not sure how to dress or what did you do for lunch? Or, these are the things. Help me find a bus. I'm not sure. There's supposed to be a bus stop around here. I can't find it." These are the things people don't want to ask their manager. So they ask the Robo Buddy. And the engagement just immediately skyrockets. It's like there's a person who's going to help me. And some of the robo buddies that were really into it would say, "I want two, I want three at the same time because I love this and I'd love to have them meet one another. They're all new." And that way they have that little cohort of people who started at the same time. So these are easy things to do. What did I say? Skybox and bagels quarterly and polo shirts. The expense is basically nothing. And think of the advantage to the organization and its customers and its shareholders. Think what that would do for retention or for having people succeed quickly in the job. If someone were feeling like they were not catching up or they were missing something or they hadn't been scheduled for training, and if they didn't feel comfortable telling their manager, they would tell the robot. These are easy interventions. I don't want you to spend a lot of money. I shouldn't have led with the skybox. That's the biggest expense. Most of these suggestions, as you have seen, are free, literally free. Take a little bit of time. And that's what we're looking for, opportunities to build trust and engagement at work. So now you have an employee who's working. Okay, now you have all these employees who are working. What's our next juncture or our next opportunity to build engagement with the employees? Well, I'm going to vote for HR. You've got HR, and HR is different in every company. And so people start with your organization. They don't know what to expect from HR. So what if there's some outreach from HR? What if the HR person for their unit, their business unit, or their region, new employee I'm talking about, sends them an email and says, "Hey, Josh, I know you're just 1 week in the job, so you're probably overwhelmed, and it's totally normal. I just wanted to let you know my name is Kurt, and I'm your HR rep, your HR business partner for this business unit. I'd love to meet you. I know you're busy. You tell me, there's no rush. When you have 10 minutes, I'll pop over and say hi. But in the meantime, I'm at your service. I am at your service." As HR people, we need to be saying that every single day. Sometimes we get the mentality, "Keep these employees out. Get these employees out is too much. I can't." Well, that's the job. And the more we deal with employees and help them, the higher the trust level goes and the fewer issues and problems that there will be, because things will be handled sooner, earlier, before they blow up. When companies have big problems, like a wage and hour claim, or a sexual harassment claim, or a discrimination claim, and it gets ugly, that's a failure of management, but also HR. Because how did we not know that was going on? We got to have ear to the ground. We got to know. We have to have relationships with employees, so they'll say, I think this new employee is really having trouble. Oh my gosh, thank you for letting me know. Hi, Jane, I'm Liz from HR, and I just wanted to check in because I know you've been here a couple weeks, and I know starting a new job is hard, and What, do you want to talk about it? Is there anything I can do? We're going to put ourselves out there. That's actually the job. Every manager, every member of leadership, every senior level employee, everybody who knows what's going on in the company, we've got to be actively building a healthier, more trusting culture. That's where community comes from. And then we get collaboration, innovation, big ideas, great results, hitting all our goals, going past our goals, celebrating our successes. It all comes from the culture that we build, and that means trust. It means asking people what they need and giving it to them. It's simple, but it's not baked into our basic mental model for work. So it doesn't come as organically or naturally as we would hope. I still need to give you 5 more tips. We're running out of time. But you have the idea here of what we're trying to do, and communication is a big piece. Okay, 5 more ways to build trust and community in your office or in your organization. One is that you want to create pathways for people to communicate any issue that comes up, questions, concerns, big problems. It could be anything. It could be a social service related need of someone on the team who's really struggling. It could be theft. It could be a scary situation with the violence or whatever. As an HR leader, I've run into all that stuff and dealt with all the law enforcement agencies and all that kind of stuff. It happens in larger organizations, but we need to know about it. So we have to create ways for people to contact us, apart from somebody specifically reaching out to me. There are confidential hotlines that you can get very inexpensively where people will call the hotline and they'll say, I'm not going to give my name, but here's something that the company should know about. Virtually every medium-sized and large company now has an EAP. That's huge. An EAP is an employee assistance program, and it's free to employees and their dependents. And they contact the employee assistance program and say, look, I have something going on that I need help with, and it's debt, or it's legal problems, or it's my child's legal problems, or it's substance dependency, or it's partner violence, or it's whatever, because life is real. And as an HR person, you've got to be aware of those resources and be able to help people plug in while maintaining their confidentiality and dignity, obviously. And that's why I say, HR is not for the faint of heart because it's not administrative and it's not even about systems. You need those systems, but it's really about relating to people and creating an environment where people want to be. So you've got to have the opportunity for people to find somebody who can make something better when something is broken. And I've been an expert witness now on 3 different employment matters, legal matters, lawsuits, big lawsuits, and none of these companies had systems. One of them had a hotline, confidential hotline that never, and you're supposed to, they gave you a number and then you call back and you type in your number. You're supposed to get the status update. Nothing. 6 months went by. They didn't do anything, never communicated. She sued, won a tremendous amount of money, but not enough. Same thing in the other cases. It was a low priority. If our employees have something to say, they can say it to our face. Well, they won't though. They'll leave. They'll quit. If there's an abusive manager, how are you going to hear about it? They're going to go over the manager's head? No. And that's another tip. Every senior leader has to get down and talk with the employees on their team, even if they're not direct reports. It seems very obvious, but it doesn't happen. And yes, you can do skip level reports. It can be a formal program every 2 months. I talk to the not the managers under me who I see all the time, but the people under them. You can have a formal program, but I recommend an informal. You make yourself available. You open yourself up by walking around or being in meetings, reaching out to people who report to you, but not directly. And you say, hey, I love that report that I saw from you. I want to hear what's going on. Creating relationships is senior managers' first most important job above their actual function, or it's integral to their function. Senior management being connected to people below them is absolutely essential. Without that, you will never have the culture you want because there will be this blockage. Now you got a blockage, which is hierarchical. still today, 2022, I talk to people who say I'm not allowed to email. I'm allowed to email people at a level above me, but they won't respond. That's shocking. That's not a good culture. Everybody should respond to everything. And my technique, which is another tip, is something called and apart from that, and how that works is that I'm running HR for, a global company at a certain point with people in, 5 continents or whatever, and they're writing to me because they've heard my name, Liz Ryan at companyname.com or Liz R. And they say, Liz, I have a question about the deductible on the dental plan. Liz, I have a question about this or that. My sister wants a job here. Well, this is a facility in Ireland or South Korea or whatever. I can't answer the immediate question. So I say, oh my gosh, thank you so much for writing to me. I would love to help you with that. I'm going to copy in your local HR person and their name. I know they will take care of this for you. And if you don't hear from them quickly, they're busy, just write back to me and we'll figure out a workaround because I want to get this handled for you. And I also am curious because we haven't met yet. How's everything on the job apart from the question about the dental plan deductible? And they would say, oh, I love the job. My manager is so great. And, blah, blah, blah. Or actually, we're having a little problem with this or that. It's just keeping the energy flowing and having everybody know they will not get in trouble for telling people that something is wrong or right or whatever. I'm not a fan of annual employee engagement surveys. It's exactly the wrong energy. Here are the 15 questions you get to answer. You're with them every day. Just ask them. Create an environment where people will tell you what's going on, and they totally will. Here's what I want you to do. Leave a comment, and I will comment back with the link to the summary of all these 10 ways to build engagement at work. And also, if you have a second, leave a comment and tell me what you'd like me to talk about in upcoming LinkedIn Live workshops. So glad you were here today, and I'll see you soon, and have a great, great, great weekend.